Good evening, Reading School District families. I'm Rob Adams, the superintendent of Reading Elementary School District. We're glad that you're joining us this evening for our first ever live event. I'm excited about the opportunity of answering some questions we know that you're having as you prepare for this year's school opening. First of all, I'd like to thank you all for taking our survey and letting us know what your choices are. We know there are still some questions and some concerns as you're making your choices, and so we want to try to answer as many of those as we can. As a matter of fact, we got some preliminary questions. I want to direct you to our school websites, because on our school websites, our school plans, like this one here, are all posted. So if you haven't had a chance to look at the school plan, you can certainly get some of your questions answered there. So I'm going to go ahead and start. We have lots of people in the back here that are helping us with the questions as they come in, and also running the video, but also just support staff from our principals who have put in a lot of work making sure contacting you and answering your questions in person, but also making sure that we'll have everything ready. I also have my nutrition and facilities director here who will be able to answer some questions, my director of special ed, curriculum instruction director, and our after school director as well. So thank you so much for joining us, and I'm going to start with a few questions. So the first question is, how are the schools going to let kids go out on the playground? So all of the schools and the principals have been working on taking the cohorts and making recesses so that kids can be in their cohorts out at recess and in specific assigned recess areas. So they'll be able to go out to recess. They won't have to wear their mask out there because they'll be moving around, but we'll try to limit the cohort crossing over at recess on the playground as much as possible. And every campus will have their own plan and their own map for that. Next question, will staff get an antibody test prior to coming to work? No. We've been in contact with Shasta County Public Health a lot over the last actually 4 months, and the antibody tests from the health department have said that they aren't reliable, nor do they give us the information that we need. The Shasta County Public Health does encourage all staff members to go and get themselves tested before school starts, but again, it's not a requirement for staff, but they do ask that if staff wants to do it, that they can do that, so no on that. If a student or staff member becomes ill, how will they be quarantined until pickup? All of our campuses are coming up with an area to isolate kids that are sick. We do have offices, health offices at all of our campuses already, but we're coming up with isolation protocols and so forth so those kids can be isolated until they go home. Again, kids get sick every year, so we always have these protocols and processes in place as we go, so it's not new to schools to have kids that come and get ill at school. So maybe just a little extra precautions so that we can make sure that we're protecting ourselves from COVID. Will parents be notified of a suspected case or a confirmed case? Yes, we have protocols from the county, and basically we will be contacting the cohort groups if we have a confirmed case, of course, without giving details because of privacy issues. And then it looks like the next question is for our nutrition director, so I'll invite up TAWNY and let her introduce herself.
So thank you, Rob. As Rob said, my name is TAWNY COWELL. I'm the Director of Facilities and Nutrition here at Reading School District. One of the questions that came in is, are students going to be eating on the playground? No, they're not going to be eating on the playground. So let me tell you a little bit what lunch will look like. Most kids will be coming in right when school starts. They'll go right to their classroom. After that, they'll have their instruction, and then they'll proceed to the lunchroom in their cohorts. They will go through the serving line. We still will be doing hot meals, and then what we will really be working on is keeping our cohorts distanced. So they'll have hot meals, they'll have choices between prepackaged items, and we'll continue to adapt as things change. Another question that came in is more of my facilities hat, which would be, are we going to receive more guidance on face shields? And this is a discussion that we're constantly having with the health department. So working on what face shields are allowable for teachers and children. So we're working on that guidance now and hope to have it out soon. So Rob?
Okay, thank you, Tawny. On that, let me just cover masks a little bit. So I know that for you 3rd through 8th grade parents, or actually every student is required, and every parent is required, or every person that comes on a school campus will be required to wear a mask. And so let's talk a little bit about the guidelines for masks, and I'm going to read them right from the directions that come from the health department. So this is what it says for a cloth face covering. Why is that preferable to a shield? Is because it blocks down below. If you want your child to wear a shield, then they have to have a drape that hangs down below, because it will block the airflow from the bottom. But this is what it says. It says a cloth face covering is a material that covers the nose and mouth, and it can be secured to the head with ties or straps, or simply wrapped around the lower face, and can be made of cotton, silk, or linen, and it can be handmade or from items like scarves or t-shirts. So you can see I have mine here, and it goes over my nose, and then it wraps around my ears. That's the most common that I see around. Other things I think that they want you to know are make sure that it's secure on your nose or mouth, and so you're not moving it down. It should fit snugly to the side of the face. And then also you should be washing it periodically. And so there are some directions if you go to the health department site on how to wash it with a bleach solution or something like that. So, and then they say just use a hairdryer and dry it like you would your hair. So anyway, those are some mask directives that we got from the health department. And so we'll be helping families with that. If you need help, please give us a call. What will be the approximate size of cohort groups? There'll be class sizes. So our class sizes will be our normal class sizes. The cohort groups are based on our local public health. They give us our guidance as to how to distance folks in the classrooms, and based on our class sizes normally, we can distance our folks by utilizing the greatest amount of space in the classrooms that we have. How will parents be notified if there is a positive COVID case in their classroom, or if a student goes home with COVID-like symptoms? So again, we will notify. We have letters that'll go home, but we'll also call the families that are involved in if there is a positive case, because we will ask that cohort group to stay home for 14 days. That's the process that our Shasta County Public Health has in place. And so we'll notify those families. We won't necessarily notify families if a student goes home sick, because students go home sick all the time, but we will monitor that situation. When will we be contacted if we are choosing distance learning? Oh, so we're hoping that we can finalize it. It's something that we really need families to do. We really need them to make sure. Our principals and our site staff have been working hard, I know, all this week to contact every family that we hadn't heard from up to this point. So if you haven't called us back, if you have messages, we really need to know by tomorrow, because we will be contacting all the families next week. We hope to have it early next week with who your teacher is and what that's going to look like, and all the materials and pickup times and that sort of thing. So you'll be contacted. My hope is early next week we will have more information around when that will happen. But again, we still have some families that haven't called us back or contacted. We're still trying to get a hold of. But I know that our principals have worked really hard this week trying to finalize those numbers. So if you hear me and you haven't contacted, filled out the survey, or haven't called us back, please do that tomorrow. Will there be any interaction with our teachers prior to the first day of school, such as meet and greet, tour of the classroom? Yeah, right now the principals are working with a lot of their teaching staff and working on how that's going to work. I know that we've had conversations around some of our younger primary students, because I know for our kindergarten students it might be their first experience on campus. So most of our campuses are looking at trying to come up with a safe way for parents to come on with masks and drop their child off in the classroom, in our kindergarten classrooms. So there'll be a process that comes out to you. We are asking that our older students, even first and above, that we drop them off and then get them into their classrooms. Please contact your school if you have a concern about your child getting to the classroom. We'll certainly work with you on that. But yes, there will be a meet and greet, and they're working on that right now. And looks like we have, I'm going to take one more question and then I'll have our after-school director come up because I see a couple of questions up there. The next one I see up there for me is, will there be music or band? So the county health has said that we can't have band or choir. We can have strings. So because mostly it's about blowing or singing out the mouth, and so we'll still have those in their day, but they won't be playing instruments. Right now, we're working on things like the kids getting practicing at home and maybe using their Chromebook to record themselves and then doing some music theory at the school, but they'll still have those periods. What they'll be doing at the school, the teachers will come up. They've already come up with a lot of inventive ideas on how they can continue the education in music, because in Reading School District, we think music is really, really important. It helps to develop the thinking and the technical skills that we think in the brain, and so we want to continue that process. So we'll have it, it will look different, it will feel different. So I'm going to invite up now Nick, our after-school director, to take on a question that's up there.
Good evening, Reading School District families. My name is Nick LOTT. I'm the after-school director, and we have a question that says, please describe how the after-school program will function to be COVID safe. So I'm working closely with all of the schools and the principals to train our staff to follow the same guidelines that will be followed during the school day for students with mask wearing, social distancing, how we move from location to location. We are still working out some of the details as far as how sign out will work, but rest assured that we will be following the same guidelines that they do during the school day to make sure that kids are staying in cohort groups. We will have students coming into cohort groups in the after school program, and within the classroom, those classrooms will be set up for social distancing, and our numbers will be a little bit lower this year to make sure that we can accommodate for that.
Thank you, Nick. I'm going to take a couple questions, then I'll ask some other people to come. So I see next question is, will there be robotics? Yeah, it's part of our, we have computer science as a definitive program in Reading School District, and it will continue this year. And so we'll continue to have robotics as part of our program. Will parents be allowed on campus? We will not be having volunteers or adults on campus that aren't necessary to the instruction. And so parents are certainly invited into the office, and we will have meetings periodically with parents, but we won't be having parents working in classrooms. Will parents be able to volunteer in the classroom? Again, I think I just answered that one. We won't be having parent volunteer in the classrooms. It's really a directive from our public health department, just trying to limit the number of contacts for our students and our staff. And I think now what I'll do is I'll ask Kim Bryant, our special ed director, to come up.
Good evening, Reading School District parents. Let's see, my question is, how will speech work? At this time, we are working with our experts who will be working with special ed services for our IEP students, and that includes speech and language students. We are going to try our best to be working with the students in order to best meet every student's needs according to their IEP. I know in terms of speech and language, you're probably thinking about the masks at this point. So we are looking at different formats of masks with clear openings or the face shields. And at this time, we're still pursuing what is best for our students at this time in terms of providing services for speech and language students. And again, we'll be working with the experts, and that being the speech and language providers. Again, if we are providing services, we will always be thinking of the health and safety of the students, sanitizing at all times within their room. The next question is about a nurse at each, well, we have a nurse at each school. We have 2 nurses for our district, but we do have health clerks at each of our sites. And our nurses are on constant Zooms and in meetings with our local department health. And we are, they are abreast of all of the new legal laws with CDC and constantly any changes. They will be communicating with the health clerks as soon as everyone returns. They also have been this week going out to each of the sites and making sure that everything is up to par in terms of the Department of Health, and that all our students will be safe and healthy upon their return.
Thank you, Kim. All right. Will the school check children for fever? Well, we check children for fever now, and we will continue to do that. But I think your question is, will we be taking temperatures of kids when they arrive on campus? And no, our strategy is the strategy that our health department has given us, which is we are asking you, the families, to check their child every day. And if they have a fever of 100.4 or more, keep them home. If they're not feeling good, keep them home. And so we will be doing visual checks. So every day the teachers greet their students anyway. And so we will come up with unique ways to greet our students because we think that's really, really important. And if we find a child that says, hey, I'm not feeling good, we will certainly take them in. All of our classrooms will have touchless thermometers in them. And so a teacher could use that to check if they would like. But we're not going to be doing that as a screen if that's what you're asking. If a child won't leave the mask on, what if a child won't leave the mask on? Well, again, I think this is a learning opportunity, and so we will take that tack. We will help the child understand the purpose for masks and why we need the mask, and help them with strategies, the thing that's bothering them, because sometimes they don't do things not because they don't want to do it or they're defiant, but because it makes them uncomfortable or there's some other reason. So we'll get to that and work with them, and if it's a chronic situation, then we'll work with the families and try to figure out the best situation for that child. Will Wednesdays still be early release? Yes, we will still have our regular school schedules. Okay, I'm going to ask Tawny again to come up.
Okay, so our next question says, what about snack during recess break, and will kids get snack recess? So in regards to the meals that the school districts will be providing, we will still have breakfast, which will be provided after school on Monday, Tuesdays if Monday's a holiday. They'll get 5 days worth of meals. Lunch will be served on a daily basis. For kids in our after-school program, we will still have our super snack program. And for our distance learners, we will have a drive-through pickup option as well. So as far as snack during recess time, it's not something that the district would have available. However, there is the classroom snacks that do happen depending on the teacher. Our next question is, how will school sites increase their cleaning protocols? Are we adding personnel? And what type of cleaning products will be used? Right now, what we focused on is training our current personnel and our custodians, making sure everybody has the up-to-date training, they all have the correct certifications, and making sure that all the products that we're using are on the N list that are approved effective against COVID. Currently, we have 3 products we will be using depending on the locations. We're using a product called HDQ. We're also using bleach, and then we have a BioTab 7, which is a food grade safe that will be used in cafeterias and kitchen spaces. So we're really focusing on touch points, making sure everybody has the appropriate training, and increasing our cleaning to make sure all those areas are touched on a daily basis.
Okay, you can tell we have smart people. So we have smart people working for this district. Every time I watch them talk to people, I'm just like, wow, I'm a lucky guy. So I want to go back, and because she talked a little about recess, just know that the principals and the site staff are working on recess schedules. Again, the whole idea is to keep cohorts together. So recess schedules are going to look different. Schedules during the day is going to look different, right? Because we're trying to keep cohorts of kids together and not have them mingling with other cohorts. So it's going to look different, but there'll still be recess times, and kids will still go out to recess. Okay, so there's a question up there about what does the curriculum look like for homeschool. So I'm wondering about that question just because a couple of things, because homeschool is college prep homeschool, and so college prep homeschool is where the parent is the teacher, and so we have master teachers that guide the parent as a teacher. And if you go to the College Prep website, you can see on there the curriculum that they have available for parents to use. And then those master teachers, they put together the schedules of that curriculum and say, here's the stuff you cover for the next 2 weeks. And then they meet with them every 2 weeks and go over that curriculum and that instruction and that schedule, and they help with assessing the child and help the parent really teach the child. That's homeschool, but I'm wondering if that question is really also getting at how distance learning will look. And so I'm going to invite up Cindy Bishop, who is our curriculum and instruction director, and so she can talk a little about maybe how distance learning looks, because that might be what you're asking. So, Cindy?
Hello and good evening, Reading School District families. The question that I will be responding to is there a schedule out yet for distance learning phase 1 option as to the times during the day that they need to report for online instruction? If not, when will this information be available? That's a great question. I'm going to go ahead and begin the response by stating we just received further guidance from CDE, our California Department of Education, in regards to what distance learning looks like. That is live interaction with the teacher and the student every day. That involves interaction with his or her classmates. And so with distance learning, you will have time where they're meeting live on a digital platform with their teacher, as well as times off the screen that they're working on their classwork separately. And then so we are working on a distance learning schedule. If this is an option that you chose for your family, your administrator will be reaching out and sharing the schedule. There will be a virtual meet and greet in which you meet your distance learning teacher. And then in addition, for those families that choose distance learning as an option, we will have parent education in regards to the curriculum and how your children will be accessing it via digital devices, as they will have textbooks to take home as well as a device, but they will also be using different platforms and applications that, as important as it is for the child to know how to use it, it's also important for the families. Thank you.
As you can see, there's been a lot of thought about how we do distance learning, and I'm very excited about the team we have in place that have been really working on that, and they're doing a fantastic job. What is the class limit? I guess you're talking about class size. Class size didn't change based on the parameters for social distancing that we have in Shasta County. If cohort groups are asked to stay home for 14 days, will that count against perfect attendance? No, no. Because this is a special situation, and when a cohort group is asked to go home for 14 days or socially distance for 14 days, we'll immediately start going to independent study at that time. So they will continue their education. They won't just be at home, but we will immediately go to a distance learning kind of format, but it'll might be a little bit different because the 14 days, they may come back before the 14 days if there's a negative. If the student that was suspended or suspected comes back with a negative test, then they can come back to campus. So, so we'll go into independent study. We won't go directly distant learning. So it won't count against them. If a child rides, what if a child rides the bus? If a child rides the bus, they have to wear a mask. That is a requirement of the health department. As far as cohort goes, so if you're in one cohort and you're riding the bus, and if you're sitting next to another student and this student's part of this cohort, that student sitting next to them might also be able, might have to be asked to stay home for 14 days just because they had the close proximity. I will tell you though that the definition of cohort is an interesting one. The California Health Department defines it like this. What they basically say is, you're talking about someone that you've been in proximity of under 6 feet for greater than 15 minutes. And so that's not necessarily going to be, you might walk past somebody, but that wouldn't be someone that you'd be considered a cohort of. So cohort, and really that's the lowest risk. The highest risk category of cohort is when you're sitting next to somebody that has been tested positive for an hour or more. That's with a mask or a mask on or a mask off. So that's why we're trying to keep students in their immediate cohorts as much as we can throughout the day. Okay, I'm going to ask Nick to come up. There's a question up there for after school.
Will after-school teachers be able to buy some of their own supplies such as glue, stickers, craft supplies, etc.? In the after-school program, we have budgeted to make sure that our staff has everything that they need. So there really wouldn't be a need for them to buy their own supplies. We would make sure that them and the students have their own supplies to use. We have made sure that every student's actually going to have their own box that has their own supplies. I think maybe that's what that question was getting at. But as far as staff are concerned, we're going to definitely make sure that they have their own supplies to use during the after-school program, whether that's crafts, glue sticks, whatever they might need, we'll make sure that we get on our side. That won't be a problem.
Okay. I think I'm going to, okay, so this one says, if going back to school ends up being, it talks about a child with a 504 plan, but I think this is a question for all children, really. If going back to school ends up being an issue for him or her, can he or her switch to distance learning at that time? What are the restrictions on switching up your option? Okay, so it's always a difficult situation because it really depends on the numbers. Right now we're getting to the point where we have pretty definitive numbers. We still, again, are waiting to hear from some families, so I'm urging you to contact the school if you haven't told them what you're choosing. But if by Monday, August 3rd, wishful thinking. No, August 3rd, we need you, if you're going to switch, we need you to call the school and talk to the principal and make your choices by August 3rd because we have to make classes. Then if during the first trimester, you feel like this is something that has to happen and like this isn't working out, then we'll work with you on that. But we have to have room in those programs and we have to build the programs from existing staff. So we'll just have to look at what the numbers are and what we can and can't do. There are other options we can do in the interim until we can put them in the program that makes sense, but we'll work with you on whatever needs to happen. So when will kids get their schedule for middle school? Again, we're still working on getting those final students, and trust me, your principals at the middle, Mr. Mosier and Mr. Selke, have been working very hard. I'll tell you though that we're looking at talking about cohorts, right? They'll still get all 6 of their periods. They'll still get their schedule that way, but it may play out differently each day, just because we want them to stay together as a cohort. And so how do we do that so that they're not moving around all day? So we're looking at lots of different options. So the schedules will come out next week. That's when we hope we can get them out. But again, we need to get those final families to tell us what they're doing. And then next question, why is it okay to have class so close together and not 6 feet apart? Okay, again, we're following the Shasta County guidelines for distancing, and basically the guidelines say if we keep them in the cohorts and we maximize the space, they use 3 feet here in Shasta County as the distancing, and we can do that in all of our classrooms. So the CDC, the national guidelines, which aren't our local guidelines because every county is different in their rate of COVID. So we're following those guidelines. I'm going to ask Tawny to come back up.
So the next question is, will masks be provided? We are asking that if you have masks to bring them so you can use them. If they're reusable, like Rob had said, to wash them. But we do have an ample supply of masks to make sure that all the appropriate parties are wearing them on a daily basis. The next question is about cleaning. Is there a daily cleaning schedule for schools, and how often will restrooms be cleaned? So there is a daily cleaning schedule. All classrooms will be cleaned every day. We're working on getting them cleaned. If there's multiple cohorts in a classroom, we'll be cleaning between them as well, and restrooms will also be cleaned daily.
Got another one down there? You want to just take it while you're there?
Can students still bring lunch from home? Yes, they can still bring lunch from home. So while we do have some great options available at the school, you can absolutely bring them from home, and then the teachers will make sure that their lunchbox stays for them only to avoid as much contact as possible.
Thanks. Do students get to take masks off during recess, lunch, and playground time? Yes, they absolutely can do that during those times. Will you be taking into consideration class cohorts when creating after-school program cohorts so that there is as much overlap as possible instead of exposure to? Yes, exactly. Nick and I have been talking a lot about that, and again, when we get our numbers at the campuses, we'll be able to look at, because we asked you in the survey to tell us, are you planning on using the after-school program? So we'll be able to look at those numbers and say, how can we keep those same cohorts of kids together in the after-school program? So we're definitely trying to do that as much as we possibly can, and maybe even keep them in similar spaces that they're in during the day so that they're not exposed to other rooms and that sort of thing, even though we'll be disinfecting all the rooms. Okay, so what would have to happen to move from phase 2 to phase 3? So we're in phase 3. Which is in school with health protocols. Phase 2 would be a hybrid. At this time, I'm not seeing many scenarios that move us into phase 2, but phase 1 would be the Shasta County getting on the watch list. So if Shasta County went on the watch list, then we'd all be going to phase 1. We'd all be going to distance learning. That's why it's really exciting to see the group we have working on how distance learning is really going to work and putting together the parameters. So if we do have to pivot and move to distance learning, we'll be ready. All of our teachers will be getting training on how that will work and how that will function throughout the year and throughout this first part, so that we can move in that direction if we have to. If a cohort has to go home for 14 days, are all children required to be tested? No. No. Certainly, if you start to have symptoms, then you would contact public health and tell the school. So no, you wouldn't have to be tested. Again, the school district won't be testing anybody. That's not our role. We're in complete contact with public health, and so that's their role. Will the kids do PE daily? Yes. If so, will they have to wear masks while doing so? No, they won't have to wear masks. I know that all of our staffs will be looking at ways to do PE because we don't want kids running around, especially in Reading. It is hot here, so they won't have to do that. And we'll be doing PE that maybe not team sports. We won't be doing things like that because we aren't allowed to do team sports. By the way, sports, I don't see a sports question up there yet, but just so you know, sports are postponed as a directive from the state and the county. So I'm going to ask Kim to come back up. I'm going to answer a couple of questions, and then I'm going to invite Cindy Bishop up here. So first question is, are there any COVID liability forms that we have to sign? No, there is not any COVID liability forms that you're going to have to sign. And I think I've answered that question. Why are we not limiting students in the classrooms? Again, we're following the Shasta County guidelines on that for distancing students in classrooms. And now I'm going to ask up Cindy Bishop and to do the couple of questions near the top, John.
Okay, the question that I have is, will distance learning be largely independent, example packets like it was in the spring, or will it be more live interaction with the teacher lecturing, interacting, etc.? California Department of Ed has come out with further guidelines in regards to what distance learning looks like for the 2021 school year. It is daily live interaction with the teacher involving the student along with his or her classmates. The next question piggybacks on that. Can you please describe what the day will look like for distance learning kids and how much time they will be on Zoom with their teachers? This is a two-part question, so I'll stop there and answer this piece. What it'll look like, the national standards say screen time for an elementary student is 1 to 2 hours, and then you have middle school at 2 to 3 hours. This year, the California has lessened instructional minutes in the event of distance learning. So to give you an example, if I had a first grade student, there may be a whole class meeting with the whole class. There will be a small group time frame in which they receive English language arts instruction, and then a small group time in which they receive math instruction. And so that's how that will look. And so that's called synchronous time. The time that students are interacting live with their teacher is called synchronous time. The state has defined that distance learning is time with the teacher and then also time where they're still learning without the live interaction. And that's called asynchronous time. And so if your child is on the Zoom call with your teacher for an hour and 15 minutes, and it's a first grade student, the difference of the time of 230 minutes will be that student doing asynchronous learning, learning without the teacher. Now the different time, that will not be a continuous hour and 15-minute block. There will be different scheduled times that once you are assigned a distance learning teacher, that teacher will be connecting with you and giving you the schedule in which your child will be reporting on that virtual Zoom call in which they receive their instruction. And again, distance learning is that live interaction daily with the teacher and the student and his or her classmates. The next part to this question is, will Turtle Bay kids be with Turtle Bay teachers? That's a great question. Currently, we're looking at all of our families district-wide that are choosing distance learning as an option. To the extent practicable, we will be having students with teachers of that site, but again, it's really based on numbers, and that will all be coming out early next week. Thank you.
All right. Okay, so will they be doing any after-school sports? Again, sports are postponed at this time, so there won't be any sports after school. When we get more directives from the state about sports, we'll be able to do that. Will kids currently in dual immersion program at Sycamore still have access to their Spanish curriculum? Yes. If we're talking about if they're distance learning, if they're going to distance learning, I haven't worked that out yet just because we haven't seen the numbers of students that are choosing distance learning in the Spanish dual immersion program. We certainly want to try to pull that off, but you know, we're just going to have to see how it works out. What happens if a parent or student tests positive or a sibling from another grade or cohort? Okay, so the different part of this question is, so if a student tests positive and they have a sibling at the school, one of the questions I've heard is, will the sibling's class have to be quarantined? And the answer is to that is no. Shasta County Health says that that's one step away from the positive student, so that class is not affected, though that student's brother would, because they live at the home where the child's infected, they would be quarantined. What happened? Okay, I did that one. How are the older grades with the multiple class periods and our teachers operating? Again, we're working on that. I kind of shared a little bit with you, but they may be doing more time on certain days with classes and not, they'll still get all their classes, but they might be parceled out through the week or other ways, or kept together as they travel, or other opportunities. We're looking at, when we get all the numbers, then we'll be able to look at it. What is happening with activities such as library, STEAM labs that are shared spaces between grades and classes? So as far as STEAM labs go, those are going to have to be cleaned when groups use it, and Cypress has a very dynamic STEAM lab to it, so they will work out a process for making sure that it's clean between groups. And libraries, we're looking at things like we have online checkout, we have the ability for kids to look up books and then check them out, and the library bring the books to them. There are lots and lots of opportunities for how we can mitigate the spaces where kids' cohorts go into. What are the rough numbers of parents wanting distance learning over face-to-face learning? Well, again, we don't have all those numbers in, but right now I think we're nearing 400. So quite a few folks choosing distance learning. So we'll be able to have robust classes and teachers. And so I'm very excited because we have great teachers from all around the district. We pride ourselves in having some of the best teachers and instructors. I mean, the classes I go into and the teachers that I know, all the teachers that I know that work in our district, they're great teachers. So I'm excited for you to get whatever teacher you get in the distance learning program, whether from your campus or another campus, that you'll be happy. So What about going from phase 3 to phase 4? So phase 3 is in school, in-person teaching with the health protocols, and phase 4 would be in school with no health protocols. And so again, that's going to be up to the health department and the COVID cases. So, I mean, I always tell people, I mean, so that's why I wear this everywhere I go when I go in public. Why? Because I want all my kids back. I want to go into the classroom and I want to talk to them all the time, because that's the thing I enjoy about being an educator. And so let's get COVID over and let's get back to school as normal. Will kids in the grades that aren't required to wear a mask for school be required to wear a mask while transitioning from classrooms heading to lunch? Yes. So even our K2 students that don't have to wear a mask in class will have to have a mask, because they have to wear a mask coming into campus, leaving campus, and then traveling from place to place in the building. Can we walk our kids into the classroom on the first day of school? I think I talked about that a little earlier. Every school's working on a process. For our younger students, mostly we're thinking about kindergarten parents, because this might be their first in-school experience. Or they're working out other ways for you to meet and greet if so. But if you're concerned about it for your child, please call your school and talk to your principal. They've all been working really hard and would love to talk to you about that. I'm going to invite up Kim.
Hello again. I guess I was cut off back there, so I will answer that question again about our service providers allowed on campus. And again, service providers are allowed on campus if they are within the IEP for a student in order to receive FAPE, free and appropriate public education. But I do want to reiterate what Mr. Adams had mentioned, that we are trying to reduce as much traffic on and off campuses. So we are going to be holding IEPs, but if it is within the IEP of the student and if that is what's best for the student, then absolutely. But again, we have safety and health precautions in place for anyone coming onto our campus, and then again leaving campus, and sanitizing the area in which they are working with students. My soon-to-be 8th grader at Sequoia has an active IEP. He requires up-close help from a teacher occasionally. Can this still be provided? I'm assuming the student is returning to school, and absolutely. We are following the IEP to the T for every student. And again, parents, I need to remind you that you can call an IEP at any time. Our case managers will be back next week, but really they're working, a lot of them are working this week. So if you want to send an email and request an IEP, you are welcome to at any time. And then the next one, will kids with speech that have opted to do distance learning have speech over Zoom? So yes, that still we are working on procedures and protocols, but again, distance learning is going to be through the IEP process. So that is a change of placement. So an IEP will be called first. You will be contacted by your case manager, or you again can contact your case manager, and then at that time it will be determined if distance learning is what's best, and that best meets your students' needs in terms of, again, free and appropriate public education, and meeting the best needs of your student.
Okay, so the next question is, are distance learning schedules flexible at all? Great question. Again, I'm going to go back and say that distance learning will be live interaction that's daily with a classroom teacher that involves a student and his or her classmates. In regards to when your child meets on the Zoom with the teacher, our teachers in Reading School District are exemplary. Just like in the regular class setting, teachers are always willing and available to work with families. And so as you work with your distance learning teacher and you are discussing the schedule, like I said, our teachers are exceptional. So you will be meeting daily, but in terms of personal needs, in terms of times, that would be something that you would work out directly with the teacher. Thanks.
There's another one.
Oh, I have another one.
Further down.
Will we get a list of supplies needed for distance learning? That's a great question. In California, we have a free and public education, and so those items that are needed for your child to successfully complete distance learning will be provided.
How can we help our schools as parents? Again, I think if you read the document that came out there, start working with your child on masks. Start working with your child on how to wash their hands for 20 seconds. Start working with your child about what hand sanitizer, how you use hand sanitizer. Start working with your child on just school, you know, and getting up every morning and doing those things. Those are certainly help. You can contact the school if you have other concerns or other things that you want to help the school out with. The donations, we always take donations. So, but really it's just preparing your child for the start of school, which is really just 2 weeks away. So. You can start doing that. I'm going to take the next question kind of related. It says, are backpacks allowed? They currently are. I would say, though, that at some of the younger grades, I'm not sure that they're really needed. So if, you know, talk to your school about whether they really need a backpack or not. Some of the younger grades, they just carry home papers. And so maybe a backpack's not needed. Maybe in the older grades, they do because they carry home more significant books and things like that. So, but yes, we aren't excluding backpacks. So this one, how will Turtle Bay handle the different lease times? There are normally bus holding and sibling holding rooms and younger students and so on. And yes, there will be a variety of release time strategies for all of our campuses. And so our principals are working on that, how to maybe even stagger release. And siblings, if we have siblings, I'm sure that they can work out if you need to pick up the older sibling at the earlier time. Just work with your school on that, but we're definitely looking at opportunities on how we can do staggered release. And Turtle Bay would be one of them that would do that as well. How are we going to keep cohorts together with electives? So we're talking about Sequoia here. If there are only 12 8th grade students in band and so on and so forth. So what we're looking at right now is trying to make grade level based electives. So I know that's what we've been working on. So we're trying to keep grade level cohorts that would be together in other classes in their electives as well. Difficult to do. It's really where we're coming from, what we're working on trying to do, to try to keep the cohort idea intact even at Sequoia. 400 out of how many students? We have about 2,900 students in Reading School District. Will all students have one-to-one devices for K-8 if distance learning takes place? Yes. That's something that we've been hot and heavy working on. We're definitely going to need some help from some families. We aren't one-to-one kindergarten through 8th grade. We're one-to-one 2nd through 8th grade in our district right now. So we really could go one-to-one. For distance learning students, we will be providing Chromebooks to you unless you say that you don't need that. When should we be expecting to get more information for our students who are doing distance learning, such as who their teachers are? Again, we're working out schedules now. What will the timeline be? We're hoping by the very least early next week or by mid next week. It is a monumental task because we're still waiting on some families, but we will start building and have things out to families early next week because we know that you're waiting and you're looking for that information. Will K2 students be encouraged to wear masks in class? You're certainly allowed to wear masks in class. The guidelines from Shasta County Public Health say we should encourage K2 students to wear masks, so if you would want your student to wear masks, they're encouraged to wear them. Will those teachers be wearing face shields since so much of the learning? Again, we're going to have a variety of options for our teachers. I suspect that many of our younger teachers and many of our teachers are going to want something that's more clear, and so we'll have that option available to them so that they can, so students can see their expressions and hear them speaking and that sort of thing. So they'll have that option. If siblings in different grades have a positive test in the household, I think I already covered that. Will kids in other grades be interacting with each other on the playground? No, they're working on having recesses and playground times that are different, separated out, and try to keep them in certain areas. So even for big schools, they're working out how they can do a recess rotation, so kids are in different parts of the playground at different weeks or different days or however they're planning on doing. So it's quite a deal. And I got to tell you, our principals, our leaders, the teachers, our staff, they have worked so hard on trying to put this together the best possible way for you and our families. And I'm excited about what they're doing, and I think you'll be very pleased with what they've been working on. I'm going to invite TAWNY back up for a couple of questions.
So the next question is, will construction around Bonneview be done by the start of school? And how will this affect drop-off and pickup? This is a great question, and unfortunately I do not know the answer to it. I do, however, know the general contractor who is working on it, so I will be working with him as we get closer to school and the principal to get that resolved and see what it looks like. I will say that I know that we have meal pickups that are at Bonneview that have been going all summer, and the contractor has been very gracious with us and working with us to make sure that there's not a huge holdup. It does have some delays, but it's really been quite pleasant. So the next one is, will there be guidelines for types, designs of mask worn like dress code? We do have board policy on appropriate clothing for school, so that would also apply to masks. And as we discussed earlier, we will also be working on some guidelines for masks as far as what aligns with the health department to make sure that they have appropriate seal and the right age groups are wearing them. So the next question is, why are the restrooms only going to be cleaned daily and not periodically throughout the day? So we will be cleaning high touch points periodically throughout the day and more frequently as much as practicable. As far as why they're not being cleaned thoroughly throughout the day, we try really hard to have grade groups associated with certain restrooms, so we're going to do the best we can to make sure things are clean and sanitary for all of our kids as best as we can. Thanks.
Okay. The next question, will electives be allowed with distance learning? No, our distance learning classrooms will be considered self-contained classrooms. The next question is, I will have a kindergartner and a fourth grader doing distance learning. I will need to make sure that they are not in Zoom meetings at the same time so that I can keep them on task. Will families with multiple children be scheduled accordingly? Great question. As we go into the 2021 school year, we know that if you're choosing distance learning as an option, you will be still connected with your home school. But having said that, your distance learning option will be its own cohort. And just like you would do in a school setting, and I'll use the example of parent conferences, there's a lot of work behind the scenes to schedule parent conferences. Teachers meet and organize and talk about siblings so that way they're not giving conflicting times. In the event of distance learning and scheduling time frames, if there are siblings, teachers will be provided time in which they will be meeting virtually in order to work on scheduling. So that's a great question.
The question is, can a parent choose distance learning if they no longer feel that they want to do face-to-face or it's safe? Absolutely. Please call the school and talk to your principal right away so that we can get you in the numbers. We can make that change. Will families who chose college prep homeschool be getting any assistance with supplies, enrichment opportunities? So they do supply textbooks, paper, scheduling, that sort of thing. But again, it's homeschool, so that program will be telling you about what they will supply and then what you will supply as the homeschool teacher. Will there still be award ceremonies, at least live, so parents can watch? Tell you the truth, I haven't talked to the principals about those things. I would believe that all of our campuses would still have those ceremonies going on. How they would do it, because we're not going to mingle cohorts, they might do it a variety of ways. I could see that as good as they are, they're going to come up with a way to do it. So I would assume they're going to find a way. Will every child have their own supplies, or will there be communal supplies? It's what we're trying to do is have each teacher with the materials come up with individual package supplies for each child in their classroom rather than communal. Who takes over a classroom of a class that has to go to distance learning based on a COVID case? So it depends on who has the COVID case. So we will either the teacher that is teaching that class or another teacher will be assigned a substitute. Will children be allowed to wear face shields instead of actual masks? Again, the face shields have to have the drape or the face shield isn't enough. So that's a directive from the Shasta County Health. And so I would, again, Tawny had just said that we'll put out some directives next week on the parameters for face shields, face masks, and those sort of things so that you can make sure that you have the right product or however you want to do it. How will the parent boosters work? That is a very good question, and I don't know if I know that answer. I'm sorry, but I'm doing Zoom calls like crazy right now, so I'm assuming that maybe we can have parent boosters through Zoom meetings and handle it that way. Well, it looks as if we have gotten through our questions. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't think that this is the last time you get to ask a question, because you can always call the school and talk to your principal. You can always call the district office and talk to me. I try to be available as much as possible. We have great leaders in this in our district. We have great personnel, and they really do care deeply about your children. I have 3 boys that were raised in this town, in this school system. They have kids. I am excited to know what our schools do for children, and we want to be that for your child. A couple other questions I'll take right before we head out of here. Can parents help donate supplies? Absolutely. Contact the school. Why can't we sign a waiver? There is no need for a waiver. Public education is a mandated program, and so the California, you don't have to sign a waiver because you're required to send your child. Are substitutes being trained to provide distance learning? We are in the process of working with our substitutes on all of the programs that we're building and the protocols that will be in place on our campuses. So they will have to adhere to those as well. For distance learning, yes. So our IT department is working on, the question is this: will Chromebooks be available for students on the first day of school for those who have chosen distant learning? We're coming up with a protocol for that, like a handout protocol for you to come pick up the materials that you'll need for distance learning. They will all get Chromebooks, obviously, and so, we'll have other questions. We asked you if you had internet at home, and if you don't have internet at home, we'll have to contact you and help you with that as best we can. So I think that's it. So thank you again so much. Don't be afraid to contact us. We also, I want to encourage you, if you haven't chosen, please call the school tomorrow, because we really do need to get, as people were indicating in their questions, they really want to get their schedules, and we want to get them done so that we can help you be ready for the school year. We're excited about the school year. We can't wait for it to start. We can't wait to see your child, whether it's on a Zoom call or whether it's in person. So thank you very much, and you guys have a wonderful evening.